In the world of comedy, laughter is supposed to bring people together. But sometimes, behind the curtain, tension can explode in unexpected ways. One of the most shocking examples happened in 1978 when Chevy Chase and Bill Murray clashed in a backstage fight at Saturday Night Live. Two fans, these two men were comedy geniuses, people who made millions laugh through their sharp wit and funny characters. But when they came face to face, things quickly turned dark. Witnesses say the fight was so intense that other comedians left the room because they did not want to get caught in the middle. It was not just a playful argument or a small misunderstanding. It was personal, very personal. Words were exchanged that cut deeper than jokes ever should, touching sensitive areas like family, career, and personal insecurities. Some who were there compared the atmosphere to a gladiator battle, with insults thrown like weapons. Even after the physical fight ended, the damage was done, and the bad blood between Chase and Murray would last for decades. What started as tension behind the scenes soon became one of the most famous feuds in comedy history, showing that even in a world built on laughter, grudges can be very real. Many celebrity disagreements start over small things, but this fight was fueled by years of jealousy, competition, and personality clashes. The rivalry between Chevy Chase and Bill Murray was not about a simple joke gone wrong or two performers having different ideas about a sketch. It went much deeper. Chase was already a big star when he left SNL after becoming one of the standout faces of the first season. He was charming, quick, and very confident in his delivery. Audiences loved him, and Hollywood quickly offered him roles in hit movies. Murray, on the other hand, was still finding his place. He was funny, yes, but his style was different, unpredictable, raw, and sometimes confrontational. When he joined SNL after Chase left, it was clear he was stepping into big shoes. Some fans and critics even compared him to Chase directly, saying he lacked the same smooth charisma. This built pressure on Murray, who felt he was constantly being compared to the man he replaced. To make things worse, Chase returned as a guest host in 1978, walking into the SNL studio with the air of a Hollywood star who had outgrown television. The mix of Chase's confidence and Murray's resentment created the perfect storm for an explosion that had been brewing for months. To understand why Chevy Chase often clashed with people, it helps to look at his background. Born Cornelius Crane Chase in 1943, he came from a wealthy family connected to the Crane plumbing fortune. On the outside, his childhood looked privileged. His father was a Princeton-educated editor, and his mother was a concert pianist. The family tree included artists, military officers, and performers, which suggested a cultured upbringing. But behind the surface, things were much darker. His parents divorced when he was young, and he experienced what he later described as physical and emotional abuse from his mother and stepfather. Punishments were sometimes extreme, like being locked in closets or basements. These experiences left him living in fear as a child. School was not much easier. He moved through elite private schools and was even expelled a few times, before finally graduating as valedictorian from a small Massachusetts school. Even back then, Chase was known for his sharp humor, which could sometimes turn mean. He pulled wild pranks, played drums in bands, and developed a knack for slapstick comedy. After graduating from Bard College with a degree in English, he avoided military service and moved toward entertainment, first through music and then through comedy. His privileged, yet unstable childhood seemed to shape both his talent and his temper, creating a personality that could be brilliant but also very difficult for others to handle. Bill Murray's path to comedy fame could not have been more different. Born in 1950 in a working-class Chicago suburb, Murray grew up as one of 9 children in a big Irish Catholic family. Life was not easy, and unlike Chase, he did not have wealth or privilege behind him. He tried college but was expelled after only 1 year, reportedly because of drug possession. His career break came when he joined the National Lampoon Radio Hour, working alongside other rising comedians. Murray's style stood out immediately. He was unpolished, spontaneous, and loved improvisation. He thrived on unpredictability, often saying things that could make a situation awkward but also hilarious. This quality later made him perfect for films like Meatballs and Stripes, where his energy felt fresh and real. When Murray joined SNL in 1977, he was replacing Chevy Chase, who had already become a household name. This put him in a tough position. As fans were still attached to Chase, critics even said Murray seemed angry at the world compared to Chase's smooth charm. Offstage, Murray's personality was just as unpredictable. Colleagues noticed his moods could shift quickly, from friendly and brilliant to explosive and confrontational. His personal life also reflected this turbulence. His first marriage struggled under the pressure of fame, and some friends said he often slipped into characters even when he was at home. By the early 1980s, Murray had become both a star and a wild card, the type of performer people loved to watch but feared to work with. When you put two strong personalities like Chevy Chase and Bill Murray in the same environment, it is easy to see why sparks flew. Their comedy styles were opposites. Chase had a sharp, controlled delivery. He was known for making a punchline look effortless, with perfect timing and a confident smirk. Murray, on the other hand, thrived on chaos. He could throw away the script, improvise, and turn an awkward pause into a laugh. One was precise, the other, unpredictable. These differences reflected their personalities. Chase could be cutting and sarcastic, sometimes pushing his humor into mean-spirited territory. Murray could be confrontational and hot-tempered, quick to challenge others when he felt disrespected. When Chase left SNL in 1976, Murray studied the show intensely, reportedly jealous of Chase's success. So when Chase came back in 1978, Murray already had a collection of frustrations and comparisons building inside him. Chase, meanwhile, returned acting like a star, bragging about Hollywood and dropping names of movie celebrities. This combination of arrogance from Chase and resentment from Murray was like gasoline and fire. The fight that followed was almost unavoidable. The big explosion happened on February 18, 1978, when Chevy Chase returned to SNL as a guest host. What should have been a celebratory night turned into one of the most infamous backstage fights in comedy history. Witnesses said tension was obvious throughout the week. Murray reportedly clenched his jaw whenever Chase's name was mentioned. Chase seemed unaware of how much resentment was building, walking around as if he were a hero returning to his old stage. At one point backstage, Chase greeted Murray with a casual, almost mocking comment. That was the spark that lit the fire. Murray snapped back, calling Chase a medium talent who had only gotten lucky by using other people's writing. The words cut deep, and Chase fired back with personal insults about Murray's background and career. The argument escalated quickly, with each man throwing words designed to wound. Then, it turned physical. Accounts differ on who started it, but the two men ended up grabbing each other and slamming into a prop table. Crew members rushed in to break them apart. Chase left with a split lip, and Murray had scratches on his face. But the real scars were emotional. They had said things to each other that could never be taken back. Things so personal that even decades later, Murray refused to repeat what Chase had said. Although both men performed their sketches that night as if nothing had happened. The truth was that the fight left a mark that would never fully heal. The feud shaped their relationship for years, spreading into the larger comedy community. People in Hollywood and at SNL quickly realized that Chase and Murray could not be in the same room without trouble. At charity events or comedy benefits, organizers sometimes had to schedule them at different times just to avoid another blow-up. The bad blood affected casting decisions, movie projects, and even friendships. As people were forced to pick sides, the rivalry became part of both men's reputations. With Chase seen as arrogant and difficult to work with, while Murray was seen as brilliant but volatile. For audiences, the fight became almost legendary. The kind of behind-the-scenes drama that made people realize comedy was not always fun and lighthearted. It showed how personal rivalries can last longer than jokes and even shape entire careers. After the infamous 1978 fight, both Chevy Chase and Bill Murray went on to carve out legendary careers. But the shadow of their feud lingered. Chase moved quickly into film, starring in Caddyshack 1980, National Lampoon's Vacation 1983, and Fletch 1985. These roles cemented him as a household name, someone who could carry an entire movie with his dry humor and clumsy charm. Murray, meanwhile, exploded into fame with Stripes 1981 and Ghostbusters 1984. He was no longer the comedian chasing Chase's shadow. He was now a star in his own right, with a fan base that adored his mix of sarcasm and unpredictability. Hollywood insiders often pointed out that their careers seemed like parallel tracks. Both became leading men in comedy. Both had loyal fan bases, but they rarely crossed paths again on set. Producers avoided pairing them because of the backstage danger, and in doing so, the industry quietly admitted the feud was too toxic to risk. The one major exception was Caddyshack. Released in 1980, the film featured both Murray and Chase, though interestingly, they had very little screen time together. Director Harold Ramis later admitted that their feud was still so raw that he had to carefully plan how they would interact on set. In fact, their most famous scene together, a quirky golfing sequence, was not originally in the script. Ramis added it late in production because test audiences wanted to see Chase and Murray share the screen. Despite the tension, the two men delivered a hilarious performance, with Chase playing the smooth, sarcastic Ty Webb and Murray as the eccentric groundskeeper Carl Spack. Behind the camera, however, the atmosphere was far from friendly. Chase later said the scene was shot in a single day, and that both men avoided eye contact as much as possible. Fans loved the film, but many insiders knew it was a miracle that Chase and Murray could even be in the same space without another explosion. For years after their fight, both men threw subtle jabs at each other in interviews. Chase often used sarcasm, brushing off Murray as a guy who got lucky, or downplaying his improvisational style. Murray, on the other hand, rarely spoke about Chase directly, but when asked, he would describe him as talented but unpleasant. One of the sharpest comments came in the late 1980s when Murray called Chase a Chevy. "No, you never know if it's going to start or not." Chase responded years later by mocking Murray's temper, saying, "You never know if he's going to hug you or punch you." Even when decades passed, the bitterness had not fully healed. In 2002, when Chase was honored at a comedy awards ceremony, Murray declined to appear, despite being invited. These public moments showed that their feud was not just a one-time incident. It was a wound that stayed open, each man keeping the other at a distance through humor that was laced with poison. Audiences, too, became part of the feud. In comedy circles, people often asked, "Are you a Chevy guy or a Bill guy?" Chase fans admired his confident wit and polished delivery, seeing him as the face of 1970s satire. Murray fans loved his raw, unpredictable energy and the way he could turn awkwardness into comedy gold. Some fans even enjoyed the feud itself, treating it like a storyline from a wrestling show or a soap opera. Magazines occasionally ran dream interviews that imagined what would happen if the two men sat down together again, though the real men wanted nothing of the sort. Even today, fans debate who was right in the fight. Was Chase too arrogant, flaunting his Hollywood success, or was Murray too bitter, letting jealousy consume him? The fact that people still ask these questions decades later shows how powerful the feud became in shaping their public identities. By the 1990s and 2000s, Chase's career faced more challenges. Though he remained a comedy icon, some of his movies flopped, and his reputation as difficult to work with became a serious problem in Hollywood. Stories spread of him being rude to castmates, fighting with directors, and refusing to take advice. His time on the TV show Community in the late 2000s brought him back into the spotlight, but it also reignited controversy. He reportedly clashed with the show's creator, Dan Harmon, and even stormed off set during filming. Fans began to see Chase not just as a funny man but as someone who struggled to get along with almost everyone. This gave Murray more sympathy in their feud, since Chase's pattern of conflict seemed to confirm that maybe he really was the problem. Chase himself admitted in later years that he had burned bridges and that his temper sometimes got the better of him. Murray's later career looked brighter, especially after he reinvented himself with dramatic roles in films like Lost in Translation 2003 and Broken Flowers 2005. Critics praised him as a genius who could mix comedy with sadness, giving audiences performances that felt deeply human. Yet behind the scenes, Murray was not always easy to work with either. Reports surfaced of him fighting with directors, clashing with co-stars, and even walking off sets without warning. Actress Lucy Liu once admitted that she and Murray got into a heated confrontation while filming Charlie's Angels 2000. Like Chase, he had a temper, and his unpredictability sometimes hurt working relationships. Still, Murray's reputation survived better, partly because audiences loved the wildcard image he carried. Where Chase's arrogance turned people away, Murray's volatility was framed as part of his charm. Within the comedy world, the feud between Chase and Murray became almost a cautionary tale. Younger comedians looked at it as proof that ego could destroy opportunities. Many veterans admitted privately that both men had serious flaws. Some sided with Murray, saying Chase's arrogance pushed people away. Others defended Chase, claiming Murray's temper was impossible to control. Writers from SNL have shared that the fight is still talked about as one of the craziest moments in the show's history. Tina Fey once joked that SNL is fueled by caffeine, deadlines, and grudges, pointing to the Chase-Murray fight as the ultimate example. The comedy community continues to view it as more than a brawl. It was a collision of two powerful forces that revealed just how fragile, creative, partnerships can be when egos clash. Over the years, there have been small hints that Chase and Murray might reconcile, but nothing solid ever came of it. In the 1990s, they were reportedly invited to the same charity event, but Chase pulled out at the last minute. In the 2000s, Murray said in an interview that he wouldn't mind sharing a drink with Chase if the opportunity came, but Chase never responded publicly. In 2015, when Murray was asked directly if he still hated Chase, he paused and simply said, "Hate is a strong word." That comment gave some fans hope, but Chase later reignited the feud by mocking Murray's acting style in another interview. Their story is one of near-misses moments when peace seemed possible, but pride always stood in the way. At this point, reconciliation feels unlikely, but fans still dream of a surprise reunion.